bit of red button content if you're listening on Discord. So if you're thinking of buying a MacBook Pro, and I know I've just written a column saying I'm quite happy with my MacBook Pro. I'm not going to upgrade it for ages, but I'm being tempted in. So basically, ignore anything I ever write. But if you buy the new 16-inch MacBook Pro at whatever it's like, 3 grand, basically, if you throw in Apple Care, you don't get the charger these days. They're taking the whole EU e-waste thing to the nth degree and saying we're not supplying chargers. You can have the cable, but not the charger. But the charger now they've upped it to 140 watts. So even if you use your old charger, you wouldn't be able to charge the laptop properly, or it would charge at a trickle rate and not at full power. So you've got to pay £100 extra for the charger, which is steep, I would say, for a 3 grand laptop. In America, they're still giving them away. Here in Europe, they're not putting them in, and the rules they're using for that are not. The EU waste rules aren't designed really to stamp out laptop chargers. They were designed to stamp out everybody getting a phone charger every 6 months.
No, there is an update which starts at the end of April. And I know this because I've had to time it with a column that I've written. And the laptop charging is starting. It's an addendum to the law. But what I believe, I'm scraping the back of my brain, is it's only to 100 watts.
Right.
So basically, in the case of what you've just said, Apple should supply the charger, because there's a chance you're not going to have a 140 watt PD charger kicking about. But
yes.
For most sort of your everyday bog standard laptops, where it's a 45 watt or a 65 watt, you can opt out of that because you may have something kicking about, and they should be available at sort of decent prices. But of course, you get the Apple tax on it, so maybe they're claiming a bit of a sustainability win there rather than actually applying the letter of the law.
Yeah, I mean, it's just another way to stick £100 onto the price of the laptop, I think. But it's cheeky. And you're saying whether the rules or not, does it not make sense for e-waste purposes, David? Well, no, not really, because I've still got to buy one. It's still creating the same amount of waste. It just costing me £100 rather than Apple, and it also wouldn't cost them £100.
No, absolutely.
Yeah,
you'll be able to get a cheaper one than that.
I know, but then it's like,
oh, does it not look right?
Well, it's not that. I think their chargers are awful. They're
really?
Big sort of slabby kind of oblongy things that don't sit in plug sockets brilliantly well a lot of the time. I'd happily change it up, but it's just the power, isn't it? It's the one thing you don't really want to be taking third-party liberties with. Well, not the one thing, but certainly an important thing.
So I came across a Dell 120 watt USB-C charger, just a machine that passed through the shop years and years ago, and the machine died, but the customer sort of, "I'll do what you can with that," and just left me the charger, and it's brilliant, and it just powers anything, and it. I know Dell is quite keen on their charger prices. They're not too bad.
I once paid something like £250 for a Lenovo Power Brick when mine went bang. That's insane.
I think it's an ongoing sort of feature of my column at the moment, that I'm constantly banging on about spare prices, just for daft things like chargers and batteries, and just how we're meant to have sort of this legislation to help us with these things, and the manufacturers are really just not backing it up. Need a kick up the arse.
Yeah. Yes.
So is the short answer to this, Barry, that you're buying a new MacBook?
I am. So I've sort of got panicked, if I'm being honest, because every time I'm speaking to an analyst at the moment, they're going, laptop prices are going up about 40% this year. So, and it's going to need replacing in the next year or two. So I'm thinking, get in now while and there's a sizable performance jump from the M5 to the M1 I've got. So I'm not being I'm not Honeyball frivolous. It's been 5 years since I've upgraded my work laptop.
What do you mean frivolous? Honeyball has major VM workloads that he needs to run on his laptop. Yeah.
How much are they offering you for your M1?
Well, so this is they offer me 425. But
that's not bad.
It's not bad, but I'm probably going to pass this one down to my daughter because she needs a new laptop, and I'd rather. It's still really good. I mean, it's. There are some audio and video workloads where it's just starting to creak a little bit, but it's still a perfectly lovely laptop, and I wouldn't be upgrading now if it wasn't. I'm a bit worried next year's laptop's going to be another 30-40% more expensive, including Apple's. So I think it's probably just time, but who knows?
Is it regular M1?
M1 Pro,
Okay, and memory?
16 gig.
Yeah.
But I never touched the edges of memory, apart from when you're doing sort of video or transcribing the end of a podcast, maybe. But
It's not about the big workloads though. It's about responsiveness. It's about switching back and forth between things. I find like if I've got like Photoshop and InDesign open, very, very relatable workloads for the man in the street.
anyway, are we meant to be recording a podcast at some point?
We've got half a minute.
Wait, schedule. I've lost the schedule, man. Where are we? Let's move that down there.
Can you still hear my heater, by the way? I moved it further
Yes.
away.
Yeah, there's a little bit of.
I don't want to be cold. Hang on.
I'm not going to say which, but for the red button content, there's a part of my script
1
today
o'clock.
which a vicar has said you can't say that.
Okay.
As
So I'm
Vic
not.
said to the computer technician.
All right. Ready? Good afternoon and welcome to the PC Pro podcast. It is Thursday, the 12th of March, 2026, and I'm Barry Collins, news and features editor of PC Pro. And with me today, I've got Darian Graham-Smith
Hello there.
and I've got Lee Grant.
Good afternoon.
Just the three of us this afternoon, so, plenty to talk about, let's hope. And we're starting with you, Darian, and AI's got out of control this week.
Yeah, so AI coding, obviously, if your social media looks anything like mine, you will not have been able to avoid the fact that AI coding is everywhere. It's absolutely the next big thing. Every company is using it, every engineer is learning it, etc., etc. And people are really like scouring the latest models and benchmarks and releases to kind of, it really is a hive of interest and excitement. Amazon is one company which offers an AI coding assistant. They call it Q. You can get it as a SaaS thing that comes and helps you to help you. You just sort of say, I want to create the next killer app, and it will go off and do it for you. That's my understanding. But in the world of AI generated code, there is always the possibility that small errors may creep in. It says at the bottom of your ChatGPT window, AI can make mistakes. Recently, last week in fact, Amazon itself saw a 6-hour outage of its main retail website. Late last year, what was it? There was some problem with AWS. Someone's pointed out, not quite related to AI coding, but someone's also pointed out that the AI chatbot that Amazon uses on its own sites can be jailbroken, so to speak. You can get it to start, giving general purpose answers and acting like a free version of ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or whatever your bot of choice is. And Amazon have realized it's not good enough. They've had a major internal meeting which has leaked, in which, what's the name of the gentleman? Curses, I didn't write down his name. One of their senior managers basically said, we cannot carry on having shoddy code going into production and causing very visible and embarrassing problems. So now, although they're going to continue using AI-assisted code, it would be kind of embarrassing if they didn't. They've now instituted quite a draconian rule that changes made by a computer now have to be approved by a senior human engineer before they can be rolled out into everyday use. Which obviously, you might think I should bleeding well hope so, but considering, I would imagine the scale of the changes that are possible with AI coding, and also just how intricate and complex it is to actually review changed code. The amount of kind of brain work that's required to really look at a new procedure and really think through, really work out all the implications of that. This is not a small undertaking that Amazon is making. So I think I'm certainly not going to say it's a nail in the coffin of AI-powered coding. I think that is unavoidably the future. But I think we're sort of seeing, it might be one of the first of many cracks to form in the facade.
Although you say about the difficulties of reviewing AI code, and but my experience of it, it comments it up really well. When the AI writes code, it puts comments above pretty much every section to tell you what's going on. So, and bear in mind, this is me at the very low level. I'm by no means a professional programmer, but I'm always impressed by the way it explains what's going on. So for a sort of keen hacker like me, I can work out roughly what that code means. What do you make of it all, Lee?
Well, it's interesting because I've never been a quality coder. When I was even doing university stuff back in the COBOL days and stuff like that, I was always awful at coding. And I think it's a bit like trying to speak a foreign language. You might be able to sort of go into a shop and buy the cheese, but you don't know how many people you've insulted whilst doing it. And I think this is one of the problems. As you say, you can document the code, but whether actually what is coming out, it might work, but whether it's safe, is it secure, is there a gaping hole that you've not noticed? As it happens, a PC Pro Reader was in our shop a few weeks ago. They're a coder who has worked for years in large organisations, and I passing the time of day, as it dropped in, I sort of asked him what do you think about AI coding? And he said something quite interesting, which was he and his colleagues obviously been talking about this because for some of them it's eating their lunch, some of them are getting work by examining the code that comes out. And his honest belief, and it's only his belief, was he and his colleagues believe that it's going to be a bit like asbestos, and that it might be 50 years or so before we possibly understand what damage is being done. And obviously that is only his perspective, but you can sort of understand how that happens when it can be wheeled out so readily. And if you read some of in the places of sort of Reddit where the open source community is basically open sourcing to AI, there's a lot of concern in that arena at the moment. So it's, as we've always said, it's not a silver bullet, but it is worrying that it is using more and more without a human that knows what the heck is going on the other end of it.
I think, if anything, you're sort of understating. I mean, when you say absolutely rightly that although it comments codes, who knows what the hell who the hell knows what is really going on? I mean, the comments tell you what should be happening there, but of course they can lull you into a false sense of security because they don't necessarily, AI can make mistakes, don't necessarily relate precisely to what has actually been rendered, but more to the point, they tell you what should be happening, and they don't account for any unexpected corollaries, any implications of that code, or any things that the AI has. Of course, they don't mention anything the AI has missed or overlooked. So the comments, I would say, at best, slightly beneficial.
Jeff Campbell over on Discord makes the point that meat sacks never make mistakes. Of course, I think he's heading for a little bit of irony there, Jeff. And David Artis makes the point that he says, fun fact, WordPress plugins, when submitted to the official directory, go through an automated and manual quality check. AI-generated code never succeeds. At best, manual code changes are required. Quality is not good enough yet.
That's interesting.
Darren, so it wasn't only Amazon who are struggling with AI this week.
No, it was Wikipedia, although to be fair, there's a couple of links in this chain. So the upshot was that some translations of articles were being submitted to Wikipedia. So not original content as such, someone looking to see, for example, that something which has lots and lots of content in English doesn't have so much in French, let's say. Someone noticed that the French content, curiously, was, although largely a direct translation of the English version, it included additional references. And when you chase up these references, they, of course, refer to absolutely nothing. They're entirely fictionalized. They're entirely fictitious. The reason for this is, in the specific case, we know there is a non-profit organization called the Open Knowledge Association, and they have been funding individuals around the world, remote work. They've been giving them a small amount of money to translate articles on Wikipedia as, they would say, a public good to make, to further the spread of knowledge. And the individuals themselves, it seems, are not really to blame, because they were told you may, and in fact they were encouraged to, use AI-powered translation software to help them to produce to produce these translations. So, of course, anybody who has ever uploaded something to ChatGPT and said, "Can you just make this a little bit sharper in the conclusion?" and then you find it's kind of changed phrases you didn't ask for and helpfully paraphrased this, that, and the other halfway through, will know AIs are very bad at doing exactly what you hope they will. You really need to fence them in and be very, very specific about what they must not do, what's called defensive prompting. And if you don't know to do that, then yes, this sort of thing is likely to creep in. And I suppose although I said the individuals weren't to blame, they were doing what they were told. It appears they didn't quite manage to chase up all of the... I mean, to be fair, one of the references was to a physical book that was mentioned in one article. So I mean, you could and should spot that this reference wasn't present or wasn't as complete in the original English as it was in the translated version. But good luck trying to get hold of the book from your your desk in Argentina or wherever this person was. Anyway, I've quite lost track of what I was saying there. But this is the sort of thing that's only going to, I imagine, propagate more. And it's kind of lucky that it was caught at this point.
Yeah, well, this is an opportune moment to plug my feature with Jimmy Wales, which is in the current issue of PC Pro, because we did talk about AI's use in Wikipedia, and he was very cautious about introducing AI into Wikipedia. Said that they had no real plans to certainly let AI loose on articles. Certainly weren't going to get it to generate articles, and that there was a place for AI, maybe doing some of the more mundane fact checking stuff or typo corrections that humans do currently, but he thought that most of it would come from the bottom up, i.e. users or editors would create these tools and they would eventually get fed into the ecosystem rather than the Wikimedia Foundation creating them and sort of enforcing them onto editors. And I think that largely reflects a nervousness amongst Wikipedia editors. If you look in the talk pages and forums and whenever, I think Wikipedia editors are quite proud of the fact that they've created this thing as a mass of humanity and are wary of allowing AI to run amok with it, and maybe for the reasons that you're just explaining there, Darian. But I guess translation is a really difficult one to catch mistakes in, because if you knew the translation in the first place, you wouldn't need AI to translate it. You would do it yourself, and I guess it's a hard one to catch. That. What do you make of it, Lee?
Well, it's funny you mentioned translation. I mentioned on the podcast, year and a half ago, that we had a few customers. And what I'm thinking of particularly was a translator, but specialised in medical translation. They were a nurse, and basically their whole agency that used to find them work was basically shut down overnight, and it was all farmed out to various other organisations. And they were on the cusp of retirement anyway, so it didn't affect them. But there's other translators that we know. For some reason, we seem to have a lot of translators that basically just lost their jobs. It was that simple, and they were more generalised. And the medical translator has speaking to them 2 or 3 months ago, saying that some of the organisations that they used to work for, so not the agency that got them work, but the end customer, has sort of basically sought them out to say, can you just work for us, because the AI is just not nuanced enough to be able to work out the balance between translation and the medical reality, if that's the thing. If you see what I'm saying, the expertise is missing that this person and the team has brought for years and years. So I'm sure at some point it will get there. But the clients were definitely not happy with the cheaper product.
A couple of further points on Discord before we wrap this bit up. And if you want to join us, we're live every Thursday at 1 p.m. and you can join the Discord chat at pcpro.link/Discord. Lee Pixel Dino 9797 says, I used AI to code a bit of JavaScript around 3 years ago. It got me 80% there. I had to code amend to get it to 100% working. Not sure about AI today with code. It has come a long way in 3 years, I would suggest, Lee, so might be worth giving it another crack. And where was the other interesting question I just saw? Comments I just saw. Oh, it was Michael Deere saying his kid's got a talk on PowerPoint about AI for schoolwork this week, and the teacher said at the end of it that the AI had made the PowerPoint, which I think tells you.
What's the lesson there? Yeah, is it like you should use it because you can't tell the difference? It's very confusing.
Lesson on hypocrisy, I think.
I was at our kids' school for parents' evening the other night, and met their computing teacher because they get to use so much AI, even to look up the answers to questions. And anyway, the answers that the faculty staff were able to give me were less than satisfactory. But yeah, basically just getting AI to generate your presentations and your essays seems to be the de rigueur at the moment. It's not on the syllabus, but it seems to be happening.
Yes. Okay, maybe we need to move away from this. Let's move away to BBC iPlayer. So this came out as part of a consultation the government's doing. It does a sort of periodic review of the BBC Charter, and the BBC obviously has a submission into this because it obviously has to justify the license fee every time this comes around, and there's a lot of pressure on the government and the BBC to either change the way the license fee works, or for the government to sort of abandon it and make the BBC fund itself, basically. And so a lot of this is the BBC trying to justify its future existence. And what came out in the submission this week, and it's buried some way down into sort of 48 pages into this 90-odd page submission, is that they're looking at opening up iPlayer to rival public service broadcasters. So that includes ITV, Channel 4, Channel 5 in the UK. The idea being that they want to have a sort of unified UK way of competing with your likes of Netflix and Amazon, the global streaming companies that have vastly bigger resources than the dear BBC, and certainly probably all of the UK broadcasters put together. So the BBC is proposing that the iPlayer becomes a sort of central home, the sort of streaming home for all of the UK public service broadcasters, and that ITV, Channel 4, 5 would submit their programmes to that. The crucial thing there is that obviously the BBC programmes are free at the point of access because you pay your licence fee, but they would still allow ITV, Channel 4, etc. to use their own advertising or subscription models within the iPlayer, and it would be made clear to viewers that this bit of content's free, this bit contains adverts. If you want to watch 98 series of Love Island, you have to pay us $9.99 a month or whatever. But I wonder what you chaps thought of the idea of bringing all the UK broadcast into that one app. Darren?
Honestly, it's so rare that I want to watch anything on ITV or Channel 5. Channel 4 does slightly better, but still, I'm at the point where I tend to just skip over things rather than bother to work out how to use the app. Whereas iPlayer is on all the time in our household. So I feel like it feels to me like they're different propositions. I know also that you can subscribe to Channel 4, Channel 4's online service to get rid of ads. I don't know if the same is true with ITV or Channel 5, but certainly that would, if we could combine all those into one subscription, it would seem like and get rid of the ads, obviously. That would seem like perhaps something that would encourage me to explore what's on the other channels. I think I'm quite a trailblazer in this way. I'm very much in the avant-garde. You can all kind of look up to me because I live in a house with no aerial. So we basically anything that it was built 2 years ago, and I think they just decided that a traditional aerial was surplus to requirements. So we are very much discovering, what life is like beyond traditional broadcast TV. And traditional broadcast TV in general, the idea of things being on a channel even is it feels a bit last century nowadays. I'm just looking at the Channel 4 app, webpage right now. Most of the content on it is bought in anyway. Most of it's not British. So I don't know exactly what they would bring to the table. I suppose this is all a roundabout way of saying, I don't know, have to wait and see. Sorry if that's a bit wishy-washy.
Lee, can you be any more definite?
Obviously I used to work in TV a long time ago, and I remember this was cast your mind back. This was the days of On Digital, which was the failed Granada sort of platform that sort of, or ITV as it was, sort of fell out of the sky quite quickly. And I remember sitting in a room where the person that was presenting it to the execs and the directors said, "And you'll be able to see your exact viewing figures." And their sort of face sort of fell as they realised that their prize programs might only get 4 viewers or things like that. And the questions were all about advertising, because obviously that is what fuels that sort of well, basically anything that's not the BBC. And obviously the BBC has its own commercial arm as well. So it's one of those projects which sounds much easier to roll out. I suspect that it is, but I also recognise that doing nothing isn't really an option either, because every time the license charter comes up, it sounds like the BBC is under threat. So I guess it makes a bit of a sense to collaborate, especially when it is hard to tell the difference between certain channels in on certain programs. But this is the media we're talking about, and history suggests that they're not good at this reorganisation. If you look at newspapers and radio in the UK, where regionality and locality have really been eroded over the last 25 years, we're left with a real sort of bland, one-size-fits-the-accountant sort of generic output. And this is really important with sort of news and current affairs programme. My worry is if we start to sort of slap it all together, that there'll be one person or one organisation that starts to slightly buy out the others and overcome, and we'll just basically end up with sort of state media, and and that's not a good thing. So it's really, really difficult to do this, but I understand the general concept. But I'm pleased they're having the conversation about the consultation anyway.
Comments on Discord. I'm afraid, Darren, you're not maybe quite the avant-garde of broadcasting as you may think you are. Jeff Campbell says, I must get around to taking our aerial down. It's not been plugged into a TV for a decade. Scott says, our whole household watches everything via Apple TV. Gave up on Virgin Media and saved a large monthly bill. Kevin 65, I have an area will mainly watch on demand. A lot of people making similar comments. Wondercall says he's a non-UK person here. The BBC is the single best channel in the world, despite obvious flaws. You don't know what you'll miss when the BBC is gone. There's in response to some people questioning whether the licence fee should carry on at all. It was interesting in the BBC's consultation document that they said that the amount of content they're able to sell to the likes of Netflix and Amazon has reduced quite significantly over the past few years. It used to make up quite a chunk of their revenue, but it's sort of stepped back since since COVID, because the companies themselves, Netflix, have less money to throw around now because their growth has sort of plateaued to some extent. So they're spending more on programs that they can make for themselves and show first on their own channels, rather than buy stuff that's already shown on the BBC and then sort of get the repeats later for Netflix. So part of this is a defensive move, because I guess they see the revenue declining from Netflix and Amazon, etc. So they're trying to find a way to shore things up, but by sharing, I guess, the costs of distribution and the costs of engineering. I guess in some ways it makes no sense for Channel 4, ITV all to have their own streaming services all running on different technology, when you could at least pool those resources, even as I do take your point, Lee, not to merge the broadcasters full stop, because competition is surely a good thing. They also said they were considering doing something similar with BBC Sounds, so it'd be interesting to see how that pans out. But unless either of you have anything more to say on this topic, gentlemen, lots of shaking of heads, so I'm going to move along, and we're going over to Norway, Lee.
We are. So the headline is that pressure is being applied to the Norway government by proactively, I guess, basically against the decline in quality of digital and electronic services. It's what Cory Doctorow, who was interviewed in PC Pro a couple of months ago, calls enshittification. And I apologise if Darian has to get the bleep machine out, because this word is going to keep coming up, but this is what this is actually being called. Now, this has come about from a report from the Forbrukerrådet, which is the only time I'm going to say that Norwegian word, but they are the Norwegian Consumer Council. I guess they're an independent body funded by the government. So in England, that would somewhere along the lines of sort of Citizens Advice, Trading Standards, possibly Competition Market Authority. That's sort of who they are. Anyway, they've got a new report called Breaking Free: Pathways to a Fair Technological Future. And it shows how the enshittification of services both affects consumer and society at large, but it offers that it is possible to turn the tide. So let me give you a few examples of what they're trying to rally against. And some of these might sound familiar. And so basically that Facebook and Instagram feeds are overflowing with scams and fraudulent ads. Google searches being sort of filtered through AI, making results sort of less accurate or possibly incorrect. Paying subscriptions to heat up your car. And if we want to sort of complain about things, we basically have to fight with the chatbot. These are all things that we've discussed sort of over time. I could go on. Now, Finn Lutzoy Marstad, and I've practiced that, is the Director of Digital Policy in the Norwegian Consumer Council. I shall refer to him purely as Finn from now on. He basically describes the problem as a myriad of small changes that in isolation seem quite trivial, but cumulatively they ruin products and exploit their customers. And it explains how customers feel locked in because there's often no real alternatives, leading to basically a feeling of powerlessness. So this report suggests that there's some concrete measures that can really sort of help rebalance power between consumers and digital service providers. One thing, sort of consumer control, giving stronger rights to adapt, repair, control products and services, easy switching, so standardized interoperability, data portability, to lower barriers between services, antitrust enforcement, so basically strict competition laws to prevent big tech company monopolies, open source support, better funding for alternative digital infrastructure based on protocols, public sector independence, so reducing government's reliance on big tech, and just sort of stronger protections, sort of deterring, sort of consistent deterrence of enforcing sort of computer and data privacy laws. All that sort of stuff that we all sort of shake our heads about when we do a big story. So none of it is really sort of revelatory, but the report is researched and written, and now it's going to be sent to the Norwegian government, asking for the rebalancing of powers, basically between consumers and service provider, and the public sector that priorities services. There's a lot of people behind this. So some of you might be listening and thinking that, well, they may as well be asking for a free unicorn for every household. All the good this will do. And Flynn may shove his beautiful coiffed head down a well. It is very coiffed. I recommend you go and have a look at him. And you may well be right, at the moment. But we live in an age now, I think, where activists and consumer groups, they're a bit more cohesive and a bit more coordinated. So there's actually 58 experts and organisations just in Norway raising this with the Norwegian government. And then there's also a sister organisation, 12 other countries are sending similar things to their own governments, along with 29 civil society organisations such as Amnesty International, people like that. And there's also a hookup with various consumer bodies in the US who are going to push this message to US policymakers. Hopefully it might get noted by one of them that can read. And what I would say is that this collective strategy does lead to success. Now, you might remember last September, Amazon was fined $2.5 billion for making it basically deliberately difficult for people to cancel Amazon Prime. That all started from the Norwegian Consumer Council and Finn. So it is a good report. I'm going to put it in the Discord channel, and I'll ask the lovely Dr. Darian if he'll add it to the show notes. I do recommend you read it, but you never know. This might be just one of those moments that we look back on at some point and go, oh yeah, it started then.
What do you reckon, Darren?
Well, first I was going to say, it's funny because we never normally have anything meaningfully called show notes. It's only ever when Lee says I'll get Darian to add them that they occur. But yes, fine, that will go in. Of course it will. So listeners, you can open up your podcast app and see the URL and tap to read the full story. It is very interesting though, because this is a really, really big, and this really cuts to the core of issues that affect all of us every day. This is a very, very big and far-reaching thing. This isn't just about a particular service or app. This isn't really like in scope like the Amazon Prime suit that Lee referred to. This is a manifesto of demands, and so Finn Lutzow Myrstad says on this in this report, she says the ongoing enshittification trend is not inevitable. It is not a natural law. Well, it's not, but I think it is an inevitable consequence of, and I'm sorry to sound a little bit studenty here, it is an inevitable consequence of capitalism in that the trends that he describes, the things which are causing us woe, are all direct consequences of the fact that they benefit the companies providing the services, or stakeholders, shareholders, whatever, whoever it is. There is very much kind of an opposition between those who operate and those who consume. And so this, as I say, kind of manifesto type multi-point set of demands is much more than a mere kind of technical adjustment. And the idea, I mean, to be honest, the idea of sending it to, of course, it has to go to US policymakers, because a lot of these companies are based in the US and they are kind of culturally US oriented. But also, I mean, at no point in its history, I think, maybe back in the early days of the New Deal, would the US necessarily have been culturally very receptive to this kind of massive rebalancing of power. The current administration, all I can say, it's good bleeding luck.
And that's the problem, isn't it? That, as you say, the vast majority of the big tech companies are American corporations. Americans have certainly shown no interest in reining them in. Quite the opposite, in fact, certainly since the Trump administration took charge last year. So, what realistic hope? The only realistic hope is the EU picks up, and it's Norway's not a member of the EU, of course, so it would have to act alone right now. But even there, I see earlier today the Americans were again revisiting starting some investigation about EU trade barriers, which seems to be a reaction again to further measures to clamp down on the tech companies. So I don't know. I really like his report. It's worth reading just for the art in it alone. I think the art's fantastic. But I think they made a lot of really good points, and as you say, a lot of it does come almost directly from Cory Doctorow's book, which is also a very good read. And do read the PC Pro interview that Ian Thompson did with him earlier, a couple of months ago. But I just fear that the political will to make these kind of changes doesn't exist right now.
No, I agree, and as I said, it does sound like screaming into the void. But that used to be the same with smoking laws and things like that. And stupid things like not wearing your seatbelts, and we overturned all that sort of industry pressure to sort of to try and curb that. So it all has to start somewhere. So I think we should let's be optimistic. Make a change. I'm calling for optimism. We'll clip that. I'll remember this day. I'll make a note.
The Hoi Polloi are making lots of good points today. Nick on Discord says Microsoft bidding off Outlook Classic in 2027 for the much less feature-rich new Outlook is my biggest example of enshittification yet to come. It gets a couple of thumbs up for that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that is definitely a problem.
I thought it was 2029. Actually, that was going.
Microsoft shifted their deadline. That doesn't sound like Microsoft.
Yeah, because I think what's the other one that's on the block? Access, I believe, is on the block as well, which hasn't really been talked about a lot.
Alistair Kelman, a man who has some background in the legal industry himself, says antitrust legislation can break big tech if we have the will to affect proper free trade. Indeed, it's all about the will at the moment, I would say. So unless my two colleagues have anything further to add on our Norwegian friends, let's move along to Google, Darian.
Yeah, so this has been rumbling on for ages because it's the continuing fallout of the Epic Games lawsuit, which was settled to Google's detriment last November. Google has announced today that further to, I mean, it hasn't said because we lost, but it's kind of quite transparently for that reason. It's making two big changes to the terms of offering things in the Google Play Store. First of all, well, it was required in the lawsuit to offer third-party app stores to legitimize them, as it were, to enable them. I don't know exactly what the situation was before, because Android is, of course, an open platform where you can sideload stuff if you want, but Google will now be introducing a program of registered app stores where companies that want to run their own shop fronts can do so with Google's blessing might seem a bit strong, but with Google's endorsement, as long as they meet, quote, certain quality and safety benchmarks. At the same time, Google has also announced that the commission it charges for downloads is going down. I think in 2021, it said the standard 30% would be cut to 15% for the first $1 million that you make. Which I love the idea of. I mean, I know it happens, but the idea of like developing an app and then making a second $1 million seems incredible to me. And then just this week, they've announced that they're actually lowering the standard cut to 20%. And you can get even less. You can get a 15% commission if your app, participates in the new App Experience program. I'm not quite sure what that is. I can't find the details. Or the Google Play Games Level Up program, which basically means you integrate into the Google Play Games platform and you scratch their back and they scratch yours, marketing wise. Does this make a difference? Well, I mean, it probably involves millions and billions of dollars being kept by developers rather than going to Google, and probably makes Google, the Google Play Store a more attractive place to go. I'm not sure it's going to really affect the likes of you and me in terms of how much we pay for apps or which ones we choose to download.
A couple of people on Discord making a point that there have been third-party app stores for Android before. Google already allowed the Samsung App Store, said Retro Owl. I believe there are others as well. What's the difference here?
Yeah, what is the difference? I don't know. Let me talk amongst yourselves, and I'll just dig into that and get back to you shortly.
I think if I remember rightly from the case, that it prevents Google from punishing or actively promoting its own above everybody else's, which I think was an issue before, but I might be wrong. The Amazon App Store says Cold Dragascus as well, but I think that's on a forked version of Android, its own forked version, not in the main, but I might be wrong. But I mean, I remember us covering this story endlessly when it was happening about the lawsuit with Epic Games, and we were saying how just resolve it for God's sakes. And to be fair to Epic Games, they've taken on both Apple and Google to some extent and won quite big concessions, haven't they, really, Lee?
Yeah, it's been quite impressive. We talked just a moment ago about sort of trying to make sort of sizable changes, and when we covered the story, I don't think any of us were expecting Epic to come out this well. I think we even possibly talked about just it was easier for Google or Apple to buy them and just shut the whole thing up. But to be fair, they've stood the ground, and they are forcing a change of some side. So at first glance, this all seems, I guess, a bit like a positive step, which makes me, in today's tech world, naturally suspect there's something I'm missing, something I've not seen. But it is just amazing. You read the document, just how convoluted these pricing structures are. So the fees may be lower, but they're it's 5% here, it's 20% elsewhere, 6% if you're left-handed, subscriptions at 10%. There's very, very, no one is sort of getting away with anything here. This is all being gone through with a very fine accountant tooth comb. So I don't know. I guess there's still millions of dollars being shifted somewhere.
It always feels like sorry, Dan, I'll come back to you in a sec, but a sort of throwback to yesteryear as well, the idea of paying for apps. Because I can't remember the last time I actually bought an app for the iPad or phone. But these days, I pay for a lot of apps, but as a subscription to their service, and the app itself is free. So, and there's limits to how much Apple and Google can really get to that. Like if I pay for, I'm just trying to think, like Adobe services, for example, then I get their Photoshop app free on the iPad. But I'm pretty sure, I might be wrong, but I don't think Google or Apple will see any of that revenue. So
don't they take a slice of, for example, if you're playing a game and you buy I don't know, a new skin or something like that, they get a slice of that though, don't they?
Only in-app though, I think. So if you make an in-app purchase or purchase via their platform, then yes, they do. But if, so for example, I'm just trying to think of one, but Fortnite's a pretty good example. No, it's not actively in either store, I think, at the moment. But
we'll imagine it is.
you can certainly buy packs in Fortnite, and then benefit from that content when you're playing it on other platforms. So interesting. I don't know quite how they're getting their money there, and maybe that is the reason why Google and Apple are so clinging to these, we must have some share of revenue, because they've seen the revenue from straight app purchases dwindle quite heavily over the years. I suspect Darren, have you worked it out yet? I hear a lot of keyboard rattling going on there.
Yeah, don't worry, it'll be cut out in the edit. Yeah, lots of things. So, for example, you may remember if you ever installed the Amazon App Store for Android, you had to get through all sorts of things saying, warning, warning, this is not an official app, it could be dangerous. And Amazon had no way of disabling that. There were also, third-party app stores didn't have such low-level access to Android features. They couldn't change system settings in the same way. Perhaps most significantly, Google was previously entering into deals where it would help fund, it would incentivize app developers if they agreed to only make their apps available through Google Play and not any emergent third-party platforms. And I haven't quite dug into this yet, but I believe there may have been, it may have all tied into the where you are and how you are allowed to take payments as well.
Yes, always.
Just going back to your game example, while Darren was speaking there, I just had a quick look at frankly, the only game that's played in our house by our kids is this Genshin Impact game where you can spend a fortune. And just a quick look at some of the figures that they've been doing. They reckon since 2022, it's earned 3 billion on mobile alone, and this is a free app. So they're going to want a huge slice of that sort of stuff, and that's just one game.
Definitely. Roblox is the other big earner in that market, I think.
Yep.
But we won't get there. Okay, unless there's any more to say, chaps, we will move along to Nibs. And the first one's with you, Lee.
Yeah, Seagate has revealed its Mosaic 4 Plus platform, and its headline storage is a drive with 44 terabytes in a 3.5-inch package. And now, sadly, you won't be getting your hands on them anytime soon, unless you're one of the 2 unnamed hyperscale cloud providers. Like I say, but it might change later. Now, aside from the vast numbers on display, this is the arrival of HAMR, Heat Assisted Magnetic Storage, which has been promised for a while, but has now been finally delivered.
Why is that not HAMS? Come on, people.
I don't.
HAMS is a much better acronym.
Yeah, I guess so. Anyway, it works by using a tiny laser to briefly heat the disk surface during writes, and that allows for a much higher recording density without sacrificing long-term stability. Now, Seagate says its custom-designed tech represents years of investment in nanophotonic engineering and gives tighter control over yield, reliability, and supply chain resilience. So to put it another way, as with memory, AI companies are the only ones paying for this at the moment, and thus the development isn't stopping. Seagate is talking about a 100 terabyte version on the roadmap very soon.
Okay, next one's with me, and this is United Airlines in the US, who have changed their passenger T's and C's to allow them to prevent customers who want to watch video content but not put in headphones to ban those passengers from travelling. It says the carrier may insist that passengers plug in their headphones whilst watching video equipment. They may supply free earbuds to those who have forgotten theirs or don't have any with them. And the carrier may also refuse transport on a permanent basis to any passenger who fails to use headphones while listening to audio or video content. It'll be interesting to see if they apply this to kids, because certainly on the flights I've been on most recently, it's the little sprogs with their iPads in front of them watching Bluey that tend to be the ones banging out at 11 on the volume knob rather than the adults. But I think a welcome move that nobody's going to object to there. And final one back with you, Lee.
Yes, Meta has acquired Maltbook, which is a viral social media platform where AI agents could hang out whilst humans could watch. Yes, really. I haven't seen it myself. I had a wall of Dulux Magnolia to watch dry. The deal brings Maltbook CEO Matt Schlick and CEO Ben Parr into Meta Superintelligence Labs. Meta has said their approach to connecting agents through an always-on directory is a novel step in a rapidly developing space. Now, apparently this is very exciting. Elon Musk said that Maltbook indicates the very early stages of singularity, which is the hypothetical point when AI surpasses human intelligence, causing unpredictable change. So don't have nightmares.
Well, given Facebook or Meta's track record with big acquisitions, I imagine we're going to not hear a thing about Maltbook in about 6 months' time, so I won't worry too much about it. We are rattling through this show, even by my tight ship standards. We are rattling through this show at a record pace this week. We are hit hardware 40 minutes in. So Darren, put your feet up on this edit. Anyway, this week's hardware isn't hardware at all, really. It's software in the form of AI and an app called Typeless, which I've had running on my Mac for the past couple of months. In fact, I first covered this in a PC Pro feature on AI tools at the beginning of the year, so you may already have installed this yourself if you're a Mac owner. Sadly, it is Mac only at the moment. I don't know if they've got any plans to bring it to Windows, but anyway, Typeless, what does it do? So Typeless is one of these AI apps that transcribes what you say. So anybody who's used ChatGPT or Claude or whatever over the past few years will know that one of the nice features on those apps is that you can press the dictate button or even hold a direct conversation with the AI and it transcribes pretty flawlessly what you say. It's always pretty strong. But the problem with transcribing into ChatGPT or whatever is it's contained within that app. Unless you sort of cut and paste the text into something else, which is a little bit awkward, it's a pretty you pretty much confined to talking directly to the AI app you're with. The great thing about Typeless is that you can dictate into pretty much any text field. So if you're writing an email, you can dictate the email. If I'm filling out an online form, you can dictate into that. If you're replying to a WhatsApp message on your computer or Facebook or any of the social medias, you can just point your cursor into the boxes you would normally to type. You hold down a key on your Mac, the function key, and you just dictate what you want to say, and it blurts it into the text field, 2 or 3 seconds later. And it really is very, very good at transcription, and not just dictating words as you say them, but interpreting what you actually meant to say. So if you're listening to me deliver this hardware, I'm stumbling all over the place, I'm saying, did I mean to say that? No, I meant this. It works all that out. So if I open it up now, and this is going to be a live demo, so if this works, it'll be an absolute miracle. I'm a bit worried I'm going to cut myself off the podcast, but let's see if it works. So I've opened up the Discord page, and I'm going to type a message into the chat, and so I'll tell you when I start. Well, I can't see when I start transcribing, so I'm going to start. That's not going to work. I'm going to start transcribing now. Hello to everybody out there on the Discord channel. I hope you're having a great morning. I hope you're having a great afternoon. And I let go. And hopefully everybody in the Discord channel will see that it put out the message, hello to everybody out there on the Discord channel. I hope you're having a great afternoon. So it realised I made a mistake and corrected it automatically. Now, most transcription services will type out the whole thing I said. I hope you had a great morning. Afternoon. And you'd have to go back and start editing the text, and it all gets a bit awkward and more hassle than it's worth. But what Typeless does really well is make those corrections for you. So if you stumble while you're talking, if you an it doesn't include those words. If you misspeak, it corrects it. And I'd say 99% of the time, it does it pretty well. Does it swear is what everybody's now asking on Discord. And yes, it does pick up that as well. You can have your own custom dictionary. So if there's words that you say or it doesn't recognize, you can add your own custom dictionary. So even if there are your favorite swear words, you can probably add them to that. The other thing it does really well is formatting. So if I was to say, and I'm going to start transcribing again, so let's see how this works. My favorite thing about working on PC Pro Magazine is, one, I get to speak to lovely people like Lee and Darren every week, and two, Tim pays me. And I'll just wait a few seconds for it to put through, and as all the lovely people on Discord again can see, it's not just use the words 1 and 2, it's formatted those in a numbered list. So it's creating a numbered list as a type, and it's worked it out for itself. I've not asked for that, I've not pressed any special keys, it just works it out. So it's really good at sort of not just transcribing and getting it accurately. It tidies up what you say, corrects all the ums and ahs, corrects mistakes, and correctly formats the stuff as well. Didn't correct the grammatical howler though. What did I say? I'll have to go back and look at my my text. Jeff Campbell's upbraided me on Discord. But
My favourite things are.
Well, there you go. Sorry, Jeff. I can't. You can't take the boy out of Essex.
Also, he's got them in the wrong order because clearly number 2 should be above number 1.
Yeah,
Not that smart.
Yeah, it's not that intelligent. But it's just a really good app. People are asking where's the text held. It's up in the cloud. This isn't a local service, so you do need an internet connection live with this. It is you get it for free up to 4,000 words per month, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but actually I found I only really use it for sort of short little blurts or replies to emails is actually where I'm using it most. When somebody sends me an email, I just hold down the button and transcribe a reply to email. But I've not really. I think I did about 3,200 words last month. So I've not got to the point of having to pay for it yet. But I think it's about £100 a year if you do want to pay. So it does get pretty punchy on price. But I do find it incredibly useful. It has become one of my favourite little apps over the past few months. In fact, one of the things it's very useful for is also talking to the AI apps because it's quicker to transcribe than the AI apps are themselves. Anyway, gentlemen, any questions?
Can you tell it to use UK spelling? Because it didn't
does.
in your example.
Did it do it? Did not?
No,
because
but favour it with no U.
that's very interesting because I am on UK English. So, in fact, I checked that setting this morning. So, yeah, that's a little black mark. But yes, it does say I'm on UK English, so that's bad. I'll look into that. But yeah, you can select the language. Clearly not working brilliantly.
Have you tried, following on from the Wikipedia question earlier, have you tried live translation? Which I see, because you can talk into it and have it transcribe in a different language.
Right, yeah, sorry. I haven't, but for the simple reason that I wouldn't know accurately what it was transcribing, so...
See, AI in point.
Maybe we can get Finn Lutz of Holmstad to test it.
Yeah, if there's any
Now you're showing off.
any foreign listeners in the Discord chat, I'd be happy to give it a go, but yeah, I wouldn't know if it was right or wrong.
I'm taking this is cloud processing, so it's not going to work if you're sat in the Channel Tunnel with no internet connection.
No, it's not. You do need an internet connection open. The other thing I forgot to mention is you can give it feedback. So if, for example, I wanted to feedback on Jeff's valid point about mixing up the pluralization, or Darian's point about spelling favourite incorrectly, I can give it feedback in the app. And in fact, I can give that feedback verbally as well. So I can hold down my button and tell it exactly what it did wrong, which is quite a nice feature.
With the hairdryer.
Yes.
And also, as someone has pointed out, it has also misspelled Darian's name. Which I don't know if Darian is used to that with AI, because when I've done a little bit of work on PC Pro podcast episodes, it car crashes Darian's name so often.
Does it? What are you doing to make it type my name?
Oh, you don't want to know. I'm afraid.
Okay, fine.
I've said too much already.
Fair enough.
To be fair, Darian is the only Darian I've ever met, so it is quite an unusual name.
It is. Well, that kind of tells us, though, that it's not... Well, actually, no, I was going to say that tells us that it's not using your user dictionary, but I could easily believe that you haven't referred to me personally before.
Yeah.
But hopefully, if you corrected it, we could test it. You could quickly say, we've got some time. You were saying we can take our time. So you could quickly tell it this person's actually called Darian, and then repeat the experiment and see if it gets it right.
Darian, let's try it right now. That this is live correction. Although, see, it asks... That's interesting. Let's give it a go. Do you now spell Darian correctly?
It
Look at
does.
that.
Hey,
Look at
Hey,
that.
very good.
So it's clearly worked it out. Interestingly, I didn't correct that from the transcription. I just added the word Darian to the dictionary. So it's clearly worked out the sounding of that word by itself. and then did it. So that's sort of impressive.
Yep, yep.
All my friends called Darren are now going to wonder what the hell I'm doing and why I've lost the ability to spell. But there we go. Any more questions from the floor, the hoi polloi?
Just Mrs. Grant often does a lot of this sort of talking to a watch in a sort of Michael Knight Rider sort of styly, and to answer voicemails and stuff like that. And have you ever tried? Is this better than that? Have you ever tried sort of? I don't know if you've got an Apple Watch, Barry. I might be asking the wrong person here.
I've got a Google Watch, not Google, well, Samsung Watch, sorry.
Because this just sort of feels like the sort of technology that Apple, if it's good, Apple or Google should go, yeah, we'll buy that.
I imagine that's exactly what this company's hoping for. I think they're hoping for the big boys to come in and buy them. But I've not tried. My past experience with those kind of things are that it would, like I say, just completely repeat everything you've said, mistakes and all. I've never seen one previously that does that level of correction, that level of formatting, just inferring what you meant to say rather than literally transcribing what you said. And that's why I think it's so useful. A few, when was it? 3 years ago now, when I dislocated my shoulder, and I was using the built-in transcriber on the Mac to reply to emails because I couldn't type for 2 weeks while my right arm was out of action. And I just found it so frustrating. In the end, I sort of stopped working for a fortnight because the amount of time you're having to go back and correct it, and you don't speak, well, I certainly don't speak the way you type, but you're constantly sort of making errors as you speak and whatever, and it was just hopeless. I imagine if I had this now, I think I probably could have got away with working through those fortnight, but who knows. Any more before we go to the votes? So the lovely Running Dak has set a vote going. If you're live on Discord, it's some way up the chain now because everybody's posting Father Ted gifts into the stream for reasons I'm yet to calculate.
I've got a topless David Hasselhoff in mind, so I don't know what you're seeing.
Anyway, see if you can find Running Dak's poll. In the studio, let's start with Lee.
I have to say, I think you've sold this very well. I was a little sceptical, and I sort of decided I was going to sort of not look into this too clearly and sort of listen to your expertise. And it clearly, as you've demonstrated, it works really well. I encourage people to go back and have a look at the YouTube video. Mind you, no, don't look at the YouTube video because you won't see it. Go and have a look at Discord, and you'll see his words in the flesh, I guess. I remember, I've always been slightly sceptical of voice command things. I remember when me and Mrs. Grant got together, she was an Orange customer, and she had they had a technology called Wildfire, which basically she used to swear at a regular basis and just to listen to her voicemails and things like that. And I don't think they'd ever really got much better since then. And I have daily battles with my Alexa just trying to get it to play the Archers. So, but this seems genuinely like a step forward. The way that it can edit, it can tweak. That you did that deliberate mistake and it sorted that out. I think there's something really nice here. And as we've discussed, I can actually see this being sort of hauled into one of the OSs at a fundamental level. So I'm slightly frightened by the price, but there you go. It is free to a certain amount, so fair dues. I've got nothing to fault, so hot.
Darian.
I use dictation all the time. I use it, I use it instead of using a fiddly Google Android keyboard, and I use it when drafting long-form pieces for PC Pro and elsewhere, just to kind of, get a first version down. And I have, obviously, as you say, I have encountered the fact that the built-in dictation features in Word, in macOS, in all the various things I use, they do tend to accurately, kind of ruthlessly transcribe every stumble and repetition. I've tried in the past, just experimentally, I have tried feeding a raw transcript into ChatGPT and saying, can you just fix the little stumbles, etc. But it tends to, this is exactly kind of the sort of thing we were talking about in the earlier Wikipedia story, it does tend to like to tidy up more than I would want. And that's my kind of my distrust, instinctive distrust of this, is I don't know how much visibility you have. I mean, if it's just a sentence or if it's just a quick reply to an email, then it probably doesn't matter very much much if it kind of uses one form rather than another, or it's probably not going to change the substance all that much. But if I'm doing a professional piece of writing and an AI is actually changing, simplifying, clarifying my words, that gets us into some very dodgy territory. So although I do like the idea that I mean, there's certainly scope for dictation services to do a better job than the ones I use every day, I really need a proper kind of audit trail to use it. The other thing I need is, to be quite honest, I need to not be paying $144 a year for it. It is a good thing, but I don't think I would get that much value out of it compared to. I mean, it's a good technology. I see it's fulfilling a need, but I don't think I'd get that much benefit out of it to justify that. What I do think will happen is, as I think you mentioned, it probably, if not this, and to be honest, I don't see why exactly this, because I don't see why this particular product is doing anything that any reasonably competent LLM can't do. But something like this will be incorporated into bigger systems, bigger platforms. It seems like an absolute shoo-in for for a MacBook or for a Copilot Plus PC to do using local AI, and then you also get rid of the downsides we mentioned earlier, potential privacy and not being available when you're on the channel tunnel. So for all of those reasons, I think to me it looks kind of more like a tech demo than a killer application. And I'm sorry, fair play. It does a job that I can see as useful, but for me it is not hot.
Okay, well, I like I say, I've used it for a few weeks now. It's become not an essential part of my workflow, but certainly a very welcome part of it. So I'm going hot, and so are the vast majority of the Discord listenership, who have voted 74%, 26% in favour. So I think we've got a hot one on our hands. Thank you to Cole Tregascus, who's just pointed out that there's an Android version of this Typeless app out as well. So if you're not on a Mac, it might be worth giving it a crack on the phone as well, or tablet, or whatever you use that runs Android. So it's not a Mac-only app anymore. And that's pretty much it for this week. Look at that. We've managed to get to a full hour. How much did we waffle on in hot hardware? We managed to fill 17 minutes there, which is quite good going. So thank you very much to Lee and Darren for joining me this week. We'll be back again 1 p.m. next Thursday. Until then, goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
All right.
Good stuff.
Yep.
What's with the David Hasselhoff? What am I missing?
No, I don't know what that's.
I mentioned Knight Rider, my wife talking into a watch like David Hasselhoff.
Oh yeah, you did. And the Father Ted one, what was that about?
No, I don't know that one.
Okay.
There's a Windows version too. Oh my
Yeah,
god! We have to go
and-
back and re-record the entire hour. I've missed it.
And iOS is on their website, which I find interesting because I'm not sure how that would work. And web native coming soon. But
My God, I guess
Yeah.
they really need to make that more transparent. I guess because I'm on the Mac. You only
yeah,
see
they
the
do
Mac.
that thing where they just detect your platform and then assume that's the only thing you're interested in, which is annoying.
Yeah, that's silly. Because
Well, it's cost them some branding, some brand exposure on the, or at least cross-platform exposure on the PC Pro podcast. So,
put it in the podcast notes, Darren. I still gonna,
you really want me to?
In the fulsome notes.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, you might as well if you're gonna do. You got to put in 8 paragraphs of Lee stuff, so you might as well do that.
I have. I could put in a link to the full Brooker audit reports. so-
Actually, Barry could record the video and you could edit onto the end of the YouTube video as well. That'd be fine. That's your afternoon ruined.
yeah, thanks. Yeah,
Or you could use Typeless to just explain
just-
it itself.
Yeah.
I'll
you
get
can spell your name wrong
ChatGPT
again.
to make necessary changes.
All right,
And on
guys.
that bombshell, yes. See you all.
Thanks very
Bye
much.
for now.
Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
Au revoir.
Discorders.
Bye bye.